Elena Cruz had grown up on the edges of survival. Her days were filled with worry, her nights with exhaustion. Her father's death had left behind not only grief, but crushing hospital bills. Her mother's health was fragile, and Elena had taken on 2 jobs to keep food on the table. Life was a constant fight, but she had long ago accepted her role as the invisible, poor girl in the city of wealth and power. That night at the diner should have been like any other. Elena tied on her faded apron and carried plates with a tired smile. But when her manager shoved a delivery bag into her hands and muttered something about a VIP client at Blackwood Tower, her heart stumbled. Everyone knew Blackwood Tower. It was the empire of Damian Blackwood, a name whispered with awe and fear. He was young, ruthless, brilliant, and impossibly wealthy. He controlled half the city's economy, and the other half bowed to him anyway. Women dreamed of him, men feared him, and tabloids invented stories about him daily. Elena didn't believe she would ever stand in the same room as such a man. But fate, cruel and twisted, had other plans. The penthouse suite was breathtaking, floor-to-ceiling windows spilling golden light over marble floors. Elena stepped inside timidly, clutching the takeout bag like a shield. She found him seated on a leather sofa, tall and broad-shouldered, dressed in a tailored suit that looked like it belonged on a magazine cover. His features were sharp, his gaze cold as winter frost. Yet his skin was pale, his breaths labored. When Damian Blackwood's eyes lifted and landed on her, something strange flickered in their icy depths. "You," he rasped, voice low, as if speaking cost him effort. "Come closer." Elena froze. "Yes, sir, your food." Closer. The command left no room for choice. Against every instinct screaming at her to run, she stepped forward. Damian's hand shot out, grasping her wrist. The moment their skin touched, his chest loosened. For months, he had endured a mysterious illness that no doctor could cure, an illness that suffocated him with every passing day. Yet with her touch, the pain ebbed. His heartbeat steadied, his body calmed. He stared at her as though she were a miracle. "You're my cure." Elena's lips parted in shock. I don't understand." "You don't need to," he said darkly, tightening his grip. "From this moment, you belong to me." Elena's life unraveled in hours. Within a day, contracts were shoved under her nose. Blackwood assistants swarmed her tiny apartment, packing her clothes and leaving veiled threats. Refusal wasn't an option. Her mother's debts were mysteriously paid off, but Elena knew the truth: this was no act of kindness. It was a cage, and she was the bird. The Blackwood mansion became her prison. She ate at Damian's table, slept in a guest room near his, and was ordered never to leave without permission. At night, when his illness flared, he would reach for her, gripping her hand with desperation that shook his stoic mask. The more he touched her, the more his body healed. She hated it. She hated being treated like medicine, hated the loss of her freedom. But little by little, cracks appeared in Damian's armor. She saw the man beneath, the loneliness in his eyes, the way he stood at his balcony staring at the stars as if searching for something unreachable. One night, the inevitable happened. What began as his attempt to ease the pain turned into something else entirely. His lips claimed hers, his touch desperate yet vulnerable. For the first time, Elena felt not like a cure, but like a woman. Against all reason, she gave in. That night bound them together in ways neither could undo. Weeks later, Elena's world tilted again. It began with morning sickness, waves of nausea that left her weak. She told herself it was stress, exhaustion. But dread coiled in her stomach. A visit to a discreet clinic confirmed her fear. She was pregnant, with triplets. Elena sat frozen in the doctor's office, her hands shaking as she pressed them to her flat belly. 3 lives. 3 pieces of Damian Blackwood inside her. Tears burned her eyes. How could she tell him? A man who controlled everything, who never spoke of love or family. Would he see her children as pawns, heirs to parade before the world? Would he rip them from her arms? No, she whispered fiercely, tears streaming down her cheeks. No one will take you from me. I'll protect you. I swear it. From that day, Elena hid her secret. She wore loose clothing, made excuses for her sickness, and smiled when Damian looked at her too closely. Each night, when she lay awake, she whispered to her unborn children, promising them safety. But secrets never stayed hidden long. Damian was a man trained to notice everything. He saw the way Elena's face paled, how her energy waned, how she flinched when he touched her stomach by accident. At first, he thought she despised him. The thought gnawed at him in ways he didn't want to admit. One evening, after returning home from a brutal board meeting, he heard the sound of retching. His body tensed. Following the sound, he found Elena in the bathroom, kneeling on the tiles, one hand protectively over her stomach. The truth crashed into him. "You're pregnant," he said, voice low and dangerous. Elena's head snapped up, fear flashing in her tear-filled eyes. "Damien, how long have you been hiding this from me?" His gaze was sharp enough to cut steel. Her lips trembled. "I was afraid you'd take them from me. That you'd only see them as heirs, not children. Damien, they're mine too, and I won't let anyone hurt them." Silence filled the air. Damien's fists clenched, his jaw tight. Inside him, a storm raged. He had never imagined himself as a father, never allowed the word, family, into his vocabulary. His life had been built on power, on control. Children had no place in his empire. Yet now, with Elena trembling before him, carrying not one but 3 lives, something inside him shifted. Finally, he moved, kneeling in front of her. His hand, usually commanding and cold, reached out gently to cup her face. "You thought I'd cast you aside." His voice was rough, unsteady. "Elena, you are mine. And so are they." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I didn't want to be just your cure," she whispered. "I wanted to be more than that, to be someone you chose, not just someone you needed." His eyes softened, the icy mask cracking. "You're not just my cure," he said quietly. "You're the only reason I'm still alive. You, and now, them. But the world outside their fragile cocoon was ruthless. Word of Elena's pregnancy leaked, spreading like wildfire through tabloids and business circles. Headlines screamed, "Blackwood heir to be born. Mystery woman carries future of empire." Rivals pounced, shareholders demanded answers, and the Blackwood family, notorious for their cruelty, began circling like vultures. Elena's worst nightmare became reality. Her babies were no longer just hers. They were targets, weapons in the ruthless game of power. Through it all, Damien stood unyielding. When whispers reached him that his own relatives were plotting to seize control of the children, his fury was merciless. "They'll have to go through me first," he vowed, his arm wrapped protectively around Elena. For the first time, she believed him. As she guided his hand to her stomach, where the faintest flutter of life stirred, Elena realized her fate had changed forever. She had been the poor girl who had nothing, dragged into a gilded prison as a mere cure. Now she was the mother of his children, the woman he could no longer let go of. But in Damien Blackwood's world, power and love were always at war. Their battle had only just begun. Elena Cruz had never been given the luxury of dreams. Life for her meant scraping together rent, stretching groceries until they spoiled, and working double shifts to keep the electricity on. After her father's death left behind insurmountable hospital bills, she had become the family's backbone at just 19. Now 22, Elena worked nights at a greasy diner, her hands always smelling faintly of coffee and bleach. She endured leering customers, aching feet, and a boss who threatened to dock her pay for mistakes. Yet no matter how hard she worked, her family's debt never seemed to shrink. One rainy evening, her manager shoved a delivery bag into her arms. "VIP order. Blackwood Tower. Don't mess this up, Cruz." Her heart nearly stopped. Everyone in the city knew Blackwood Tower. It belonged to Damien Blackwood, the cold, brilliant CEO who ruled over $1 billion empire. He was a man whispered about like a myth, ruthless in business, impossibly handsome, and untouchable by ordinary people. Elena had seen his picture once on a magazine cover and thought no man could look that perfect in real life. But when the elevator doors opened into the penthouse, reality left her breathless. The room glowed with golden light from floor to ceiling windows. And there, seated on a leather sofa, was Damien Blackwood himself. He was even more striking in person, tall, broad-shouldered, his dark hair falling perfectly into place, his face carved with sharp lines of authority. But what stunned Elena most was how pale he looked, his breath shallow as though something inside him was slowly suffocating him. Their eyes met. His were glacial, piercing straight into her. "Come closer," he rasped. Elena gripped the takeout bag tighter. "Sir, your food." "Closer." The command was quiet but lethal. Against her will, she stepped forward. Damien reached out, his hand brushing against her wrist. And then something impossible happened, his chest eased. For months, his mysterious illness had tormented him, defying every doctor's attempt to cure it. Yet with a single touch from this trembling waitress, his pain vanished. His eyes sharpened with realization. "You're the one," he breathed. "You're my cure." Alina's world spun. "What? You belong to me now." The next day, Alina's life as she knew it was gone. Damien's assistant stormed her shabby apartment, drafting contracts she didn't understand. Her mother's debts were suddenly paid off. Polite but threatening men told her there was no choice. She would live with Damien, stay by his side, and provide the strange relief his body demanded. The Blackwood mansion was a gilded prison. Guards and maids monitored her every move. At night, when Damien's illness worsened, he would reach for her, gripping her hand as though it were the only lifeline he had left. His touch was cold yet desperate, and each time, her resentment grew. He was arrogant, commanding, a man who had never learned the word please. Yet little cracks appeared in his mask. She caught him staring at the skyline with lonely eyes, as though searching for something he had lost long ago. And slowly, dangerously, her hatred turned into something more complicated. One night, his desperation shifted into hunger. His lips crashed onto hers, his hands trembling against her skin. What began as survival turned into something reckless, overwhelming. Elena should have pushed him away, but her heart betrayed her. That night bound her to him in a way neither could undo. Weeks later, nausea consumed her mornings. She fainted at work, her hands trembling as dread consumed her. A hospital visit confirmed the truth. She was pregnant, with triplets. Elena sat frozen, tears sliding down her cheeks as the doctor's words echoed. Triplets. 3 lives growing inside her, 3 pieces of Damien Blackwood she had never asked for. Her first thought wasn't joy but fear. What would Damien do if he found out? To him, children might be heirs, trophies, pawns in the endless chessboard of power. Would he claim them and take them from her arms? She pressed a hand against her flat belly. "Don't worry," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I'll protect you, even if it costs me everything." But secrets never stayed hidden for long. Part 2. When the CEO found out. Damien Blackwood prided himself on seeing through deception. Lies crumbled before him, weaknesses exposed themselves. It was how he built an empire. But when it came to Elena, he found himself blind. At first, he thought she was simply tired of him. She had grown pale, quieter, retreating from his touch. A gnawing irritation consumed him. Why did it matter so much if she pulled away? He tried to ignore it, but his instinct screamed something more. One evening, after a grueling meeting, he returned home earlier than usual. From down the hall, he heard the sound of retching. His steps quickened. Pushing open the bathroom door without warning, he found Elena kneeling on the tiles, her face pale, her arms protectively curled around her stomach. Everything clicked. "You're pregnant," he said, his voice a low growl. Elena's head snapped up, fear flashing in her wide eyes. "Damien, how long have you hidden this from me?" His gaze burned into her, sharp and dangerous. Tears filled her eyes. "I was afraid you'd take them away. That you'd see them as heirs, not children. Damien, they're my babies too, and I won't let anyone use them." For the first time in years, Damien was speechless. Fatherhood had never been in his plans. His life was built on power and control, not family. Yet as he stared at Elena, this fragile woman who had become both his cure and his undoing, he felt something shift inside him. Slowly, he knelt before her, his hand brushing her cheek with rare gentleness. "You thought I'd throw you away." His voice cracked, unsteady. "Elena, you are mine. And so are they." Her tears spilled freely. "I don't want to be just your cure. I want to be someone you see, someone you choose." Damien's icy facade fractured. "You're not just my cure," he whispered. "You're the only reason I'm still alive. You, and now, them. But the outside world was merciless. Word of her pregnancy leaked, spreading like wildfire through tabloids and boardrooms. Headlines screamed, "Blackwood heir to be born. WHO is the mystery woman carrying Damien Blackwood's child." Shareholders demanded explanations. Rivals circled like sharks. And the Blackwood family, infamous for their cruelty, made their intentions clear. The unborn children were assets, and assets belonged to the family. Elena's worst fear came true. Her babies were no longer just hers. But Damien stood unyielding. When whispers reached him that his own relatives wanted to take control of the children, his fury was merciless. "They'll have to go through me first," he swore, pulling Elena into his arms. For the first time, she believed him. As he placed his hand on her stomach, Feeling the faint flutter of life, Elena realized her fate had changed forever. She had been dragged into his world as nothing more than a cure. Now, she was the mother of his children, the woman he could no longer let go of. But in Damian Blackwood's ruthless empire, love was both a weapon and a weakness. And their battle had only just begun. Sparkles. Word count. Tilde 1510, part 1 approximately equals 755, part 2 approximately equals 755. Do you want me to continue this into a multi-chapter serialized webnovel draft, with cliffhangers, rivals, family politics, and romance, or just keep it as this two-part mini-story?